Hello everyone! We all know that a human being is an amazing creature that is able to survive in even the harshest conditions. However, some people prefer not only to survive, but to live in completely unusual places for years. You'll be shocked to know that all these places were not created to shoot new Hollywood movies. All of them form a large part of our multifaceted world. Now let's have a look at the strangest places where people have lived and continue to live even today. Now, keep your eyes glued on the screen. In the south of Tunisia, one can find a unique place called Matmata. I am 100% sure that you've already seen it, at least when watching the Star Wars movie. Even though only a few thousand people live in this city, its main feature is that the buildings are created in an extremely unusual way. First of all, a huge pit is dug right into the ground. After that, artificial caves are created in the walls to build new rooms. Depending on the size of the family, such pits can vary in size and become larger if necessary. Even though local authorities have built regular houses nearby more than once, most families refuse to move out of their unusual underground dwellings. If you visit Cambodia, you can find the largest freshwater lake called Tonle Sap, which has more than 150 floating settlements. The most famous of them is undoubtedly Chong Nias. All the houses in this village are mounted right on the bottom of the reservoir. In addition, they are built of bamboo. Moreover, there are more than 6,000 local residents in the village. If you think that people in Chong Nias have nothing to do, you are totally wrong. They can attend school, hospitals, churches, markets, shops, boat repair shops, and even go to the police station. At the same time, all these trips can be done exclusively by water on their own boats. Every family in the village has its own means of transportation, and even small children can use it. And now it's time to witness the world's first residential building rotating around its vertical axis. The idea was realized by the famous engineer and architect Angelo Invernizzi, who built a unique house for his family, which makes a 360-degree turn in 9 hours and 20 minutes. This unusual structure is located in a small village east of Verona. The family spent a lot of money on their own house. All the objects and design elements are made with high quality, as well as they are incredibly practical. By the way, the villa also has a tennis court, a golf course, and a small pond. Now this unusual place became a museum. Before that time, his daughter Lydia lived there. When she was old, she transferred the property to the Cara Verona Foundation. Do you think it's impossible to live in such an icy place? You're wrong! Residents of DIXON settlement have long been accustomed to seeing the Arctic Ocean from their windows. There are no trees growing there because this is the Arctic tundra. In summer, it comes to life and even gets covered with grass. In winter, you can find nothing but snow, ice, strong gusts of wind, and a terrible cold of -50 degrees Celsius here. To be honest, I can't understand how local people can live in such a cold place. By the way, DIXON has everything one needs for life. It has an Orthodox church, a port, a building in Stalin Empire style, an airport, and even a store. Even though many locals have left, the settlement still continues to live and enjoy the local fresh air. As you know, dwellings and houses can be made of different materials including brick, metal, wood, cement, clay, and so on. But who would have thought that someone would have the imagination to build a house out of beer cans? Such a strange building can be found in Houston, Texas, and its owner is a man called John Mikovich, who is an avid beer lover. According to the owner, he drank at least 6 cans of this drink a day. One day he decided that the cans could be used instead of just throwing them in the trash. The construction of such a house eventually took 18 years and 50,000 cans, thousands of bottles, and lids from them, and all sorts of other items related to beer. The thin house. How is that even possible? The most interesting thing is the fact that the width of the facade of such a building is only 2.1 meters, while the width of its thinnest side is around 1 meter. Despite its rather modest dimensions, the house remains functional as before. The only difficulty that all future residents of the house will face is custom-made furniture, since the rooms have an unusual trapezoidal shape. Where can one witness such an extravagant house? It's located in London. By the way, it was recently put on sale. The fortress city called KOWLOON Wall was home to a large number of people until 1994, when it was destroyed. It had about 33,000 inhabitants, and Kowloon was considered the most densely populated territory in Hong Kong. At the same time, it managed to exist without the police or security service. However, the fortress city was under control of the Triad criminal group. And here's another interesting thing. Local buildings were built in the wrong way, so mass fires often occurred in this area. The California desert hides one of the most unique cities on our planet, which is considered a real paradise for travelers and motorhomes, as well as squatters and hippies. Talking about its permanent population, about 200 people live in the city as of now. However, they live without electricity, running water, and sewage. And you won't find any shops there. By the way, until the 50s, a military base of US Marine soldiers was located on the territory of SLAB City, which turned into ruins today. Since the late 80s, the poor, homeless, and representatives of the hippie movement began to settle in the local barracks. You may think that I'm crazy, but I want to assure you that a person can definitely live underground for a long time. And this can be proven by the residents of the mining town of COOBER PEDY in Australia. It's hard to believe, but about 1,900 people live in the community today. So why did all these people decide to build their homes underground? This way they avoid very high daytime temperatures and frequent sandstorms. There are many tunnels, a hotel, several churches, and museums, thanks to which tourists can get to know the local way of life more closely. It's easy to get used to living in a world of waste. At least 60,000 residents of MANSHIYAT, NASER, which is in the vicinity of Cairo. These people are often called scavengers, and all because they collect garbage produced by 20 million residents of Cairo and carry it to their homes. Do you know why? In fact, to disassemble everything for recycling and disposal. And although these so-called scavengers are engaged in socially significant work, their home has long turned into an unattractive dump. In the very center of Greece, one can find METEORAs, which literally means rocks in the air. It is surprising to see 6 religious centers at their tops. The most famous and popular of them is the holy monastery of RINCONADA. Moreover, it was built in honor of Saint Barbara back in 1545 by 2 brothers, Iosef and Maxim. This is an amazing place with exceptional beauty and inexplicable history. It is even difficult to imagine how it was possible to build monasteries in such difficult places. Let's start with the fact that Setenil de las Bodegas is a place in the south of Spain where all the houses were built and restored over the centuries. Therefore, people live in the shadow of numerous rocks to this day. Sometimes, it even seems that they can collapse at any moment. However, the rocks are very strong and have stood for hundreds of years. By the way, initially, it was an Arab fortress, and the rocks protected it from enemy invasions. In Peru, there is the highest mountain city in the world, and it is called La Rinconada. Local people call it Hell on Earth, and all because of the inhuman conditions in which they spend every day. The most interesting thing is that La Rinconada is located on the site of an extinct volcano at an altitude of 5,100 meters above sea level. Despite the fact that local residents suffer greatly from the lack of oxygen, about 30,000 people live in the city. Another horrifying thing is that this area is periodically overtaken by glacial floods, chemical leaks, and the collapse of local mines. La Rinconada is all about the lack of infrastructure. There are no roads, traffic lights, municipal buildings, police, ambulance, and even sewage. What is the point of living there? Despite the truly hellish living conditions, deposits of valuable metal were found in the city, and now many people are settling there, hoping to earn more money. Right next to the coast of Ireland, one can find a stunningly beautiful island called the Bull Rock, which clearly demonstrates to the world its unique natural landscapes, deserted terrain, and a tunnel for boats created in a natural way. The island is not that big. It is 228 meters long and 164 meters wide, but it is surrounded by steep rocky cliffs that give the place a rather inhospitable appearance. Interestingly, there is a lighthouse on the island which was built in 1889, as well as several destroyed houses. There have been caretakers living on Bull Rock for a long time, but now the area has been completely deserted for a long time. Now let's talk about the Chinese sacred mountain HENGSHAN, located in Shaanxi province. Right next to the base of the mountain, one can find the Songkongsi Monastery, which can be translated as the monastery in the air. There are rumors that this building is completely unsafe because the floors are too weak and make strange sounds when people walk on them. At the same time, the locals have long been accustomed to such features of the temple, so they are no longer surprised. Interestingly enough, there is no detailed information about the daily life of the local population. How could anyone even come up with the idea to create a real freedom cove? The thing is that a couple from Canada, Wayne Adams and Catherine King, built a whole houseboat with a large plot right on the water near the island of Vancouver. Surprisingly, their home is completely autonomous and does not depend on the outside world. Starting in 1992, the couple began to slowly equip their unusual house in an even more unusual place. Now they have their own dance floor, several greenhouses, a lighthouse, a beach, and utility rooms. At the very same time, the couple is engaged in wood carving and making figures from walrus tusks while decorating their personal freedom cove. Do you know something about ELLIDAEY Island in Iceland with a beautiful white house on it? It has a rectangular appearance, but still attracts people from all around the world with its uniqueness. Previously, it was used by 5 families who dreamed of a separate life. People raised cattle, hunted, and fished. In the 30s of the previous century, it became clear that life on the island is too hard. Only in 1996, this building was created on the island, which is now used only as a guest house for hunters. But what kind of hunting can be performed on a small, uninhabited island? This lonely wooden house on a cliff in the middle of the DRINA River was built in 1968 by a company of kayakers looking for a secluded place to relax. Soon, they found out about the unusual building in the nearest apartment, and the house became a favorite place for friendly meetings and romantic dates. Throughout its existence, the building was repeatedly destroyed during floods, but each time, the locals carefully restored the hermit's house. Mount Fanjing in China is a lonely stone pillar, the top of which is always shrouded in clouds. And this is not surprising because its height is 2,572 meters above sea level. The main attractions of this Buddhist paradise are two modest-sized religious buildings, the Temple of the Buddha and the METEORA Temple. Interestingly, each of them is located in its own place. In ancient times, a wide stone bridge was erected over a narrow, deep gorge to establish communication between them. There are so many tourists in this amazing place that the Chinese authorities had to limit the number of visitors to 23,800 people a day. Do you know what the most interesting thing is? None of them are afraid of the need to climb 8,888 steps, which takes almost 4 hours. And there's no other way to reach this paradise.